is a principal of Jennings Healthcare, a leading healthcare, marketing, and consumer engagement firm. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Dan Dunlop.
I think giving the introductions is the hardest part of this whole thing. Wouldn't you hate to have to do that job? I would hate it. I can't read a script. I can't memorize a speech. I can't do any of that, but I appreciate it. The other thing I will tell you about myself is I'm really thirsty. And I would like to get to the cocktails. Actually, I'm having dinner and an evening with a good friend of mine who's here tonight, so I'll probably skip the cocktails. So I will raffle off my drink ticket. Yeah. Those who applaud the most and have not left this room at the end, you get my drink ticket. You get to fight over it. You know what I love about conferences like this? This is actually the end for me of 12 weeks of speaking at conferences every week, often 2 a week. Just this run. It's been wild. My wife is about to leave me. She told me last night on the phone, this is it. I pray I go home and she's still there. Because if she left me with our 16-year-old daughter, I can't handle it. But I spoke last week on Friday at the Pelvic Health Conference in Orlando, Florida, which is all women who run pelvic health programs for hospitals around the country. And I love conferences like this that are so female dominant, like this one. James, he's like my cohort here, but there aren't many of us guys here. You know, this is a female dominated role within health systems and hospitals. So I love speaking at these conferences because, well, I'll show you why on my first slide. The men's rooms are empty. Isn't that great? You have to wait in line. Okay, James gets my drink ticket. I love it though, really. I'm going to talk about quickly, I'm going to move quickly because I do want to get to the drinks, but this is the doctor we're dealing with today. They are unhappy, and Dr. Drummond is going to talk about that tomorrow. The job of being a physician is different than it used to be, and there's a lot of unhappiness. Despite that, we still have to do our jobs and engage them. So these people are unhappy. 78% of this particular survey said that medicine is either no longer rewarding or less rewarding. Yet, we've got to engage them. James mentioned Doximity. He did about half my presentation during his. He was actually very sensitive not to. But Doximity is huge. There are over 350,000 physician members on Doximity. This is an online social network for physicians to go and exchange ideas, get help with the diagnosis, access the latest research. So anybody who tells you that physicians are not using digital technology or social media, they do not get it. 1 out of every 3 physicians in the United States today belongs to one of these physician-only social networks, whether it's Doximity or Sermo or whatever. So they are indeed willing to use social media, especially to talk to other physicians and to learn about things that will help them do their job better. So that's the hook for all of you. It's not just to build a relationship with them. It's to give them information and resources that they value that helps them do their job. And believe me, there are studies after studies about doctors using social media. I'm just going to quickly show you some. I don't want to dwell on it. It is a fact. They are adopting social media gradually. It's not like this charge. But about 1/3 of all physicians use social media today professionally, not just to hang out with their kids on Facebook or whatever. This 2012 study by JMR, which is a medical journal, this was all oncologists. It was phenomenal. Look at this. Of the physicians they surveyed, it was nearly 2,000 physicians, 31% said that social media is a high-quality way to share medical advances and knowledge. So as a professional tool, they thought it was pretty good. It's a good way to get information. It's engaging and it's beneficial. Again, it's not 50%, it's not 80%, but it's getting there. And it's only going to keep going. This is not going away. We can't close our eyes. We can't stick our head in the sand. Look, restricted online communities here, 52% have already adopted them. 5% say they'll never do it. It's fascinating to me that 19% here have adopted Facebook, and 26% said we will never communicate that way. And look, 33% say Twitter. They will never use it. I guarantee you they will use it. That day will come. So knowing that physicians are moving this way, knowing that all of you have a ton of ground to cover, and I'm a huge advocate for physician relations. I do marketing for hospitals. And when I talk to the marketing department, I say, we need to put more money into physician relations. This is where 60 or 70% of your business is coming from, and you're putting 4% of your budget into it. Does that make sense to any of you? No. That concludes my presentation. Can we go drink? Yeah. It's ridiculous. I don't know why I cannot, it must be me. I cannot convince these people to put the money where, and the resources where it is most important. And communicating with the physician practices, the physician audience, that's the most important audience. But somehow it is neglected, so it drives me crazy. So Cooper University Hospital, the first story I'm going to tell you. Anybody here work for Cooper? Thank goodness I can tell lies and no one will call me on it. Cooper's right across the river. They're in South Jersey, across the river from Philadelphia. Literally, you can look across the river and see Philadelphia from there. They compete with tons of really good community hospitals in South Jersey, and they compete with the big academic medical centers. The biggest challenge for Cooper is they're located in Camden, New Jersey. Do any of you know Camden or its reputation? It's a rough area. So if you have a referring physician in one of the suburbs there, like Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and they're thinking of sending their patient somewhere, it's a lot easier to say, let me send you to one of those great, academic medical centers in Philadelphia, or one of these suburban community hospitals, versus to downtown Camden. That's a scary thing. And I find in my business, fear drives physician decisions. If they're going to get pushback from the family or the patient, they just avoid that and they make the easy referral. No one's going to question you for sending you to, your family or you yourself to a great academic institution in Philadelphia. That decision is not going to be questioned. But you send me to downtown Camden, I might question that decision. I might push back and say, but why? So Cooper was having a real problem, not just with referring docs, but with their own employed physicians. Huge leakage from their own physicians who actually didn't know the other physicians within the health system, who weren't informed well enough to make these referrals. So we went in and started to create a physician referring program for them. I did what I do, which is I went to social media, since I had put this plan together, and I went to LinkedIn. Do any of you belong to LinkedIn groups? I love them. They're such a great way to connect with people. So I went to about 12 different LinkedIn groups and posted this discussion. I was working on an article at the time for a healthcare marketing publication about communicating with referring physicians. And I was working on this project for Cooper, and I wanted ideas. Who's doing stuff really novel? This was about 2.5 years ago. You know what I got back? Nothing. I got responses, but it was all like, oh, we hold CMEs. We do annual cocktail parties for the doctors, all the stuff we've been doing forever. And I wanted novel ideas. I wanted to know what people were doing that was really leading edge, and I didn't get it. So I did what I always do, is I wrote something in my blog. I wrote a rant, and I've been on a rant for 2 years about physician relations. And we are in the dark ages, it's just amazing. And we need to step up and move beyond it. It's not your fault. It's our organizations that have not invested in it and aren't thinking clearly. We spend all this time and energy on digital communications to reach consumers, but we don't think about how to reach physicians. So I wrote my rant. It was up here. Most physician marketing still in the dark ages. Still on my blog if you want to read it. And it was cool. One of the things I did in that article, in that blog post, was I praised MD Anderson, who was not a client of mine at the time, but was one of the few organizations I found that was really doing some interesting stuff with digital media, targeting physicians and only physicians. That got me excited. So Lyle Green, who's the Associate VP of Physician Relations, made the mistake of commenting on my blog, and he regrets it to this day, I think, because he said, thank you for the comment, and so on. And Lyle and I have been friends ever since. We've spoken, I bet, at 6 conferences together. We've written articles, we've written a book chapter together. And we have been working ever since this moment on what is the future of physician relations. And I think it's a digital future. Not going to get rid of all the other stuff that works. We still need personal contact, we still need relationships, but we have to layer on a digital layer because it's all about making access to our resources, our information, our physicians easy for that referring physician. And digital is a great way to do that. They can do it on their own terms, whenever they want, on their schedule. So Lyle and I have written a bunch of articles. There's Lyle right there. He's handsome. When I was doing this study for Cooper, I looked at leading trends. Beyond what people would tell me on LinkedIn, I went on all the top websites for referring physician programs and physician relations programs. And I looked at MD Anderson, Michigan Health System, Rush. I mean, I looked at dozens and dozens of programs. And I said, who's doing things really well? What do we want to keep that's already out there? What do we want to add to these programs? And some of the things I saw were really having comprehensive online resources, because doctors, as you can see from Doximity and Cerno, like to go online to gather information. And they're going to do it about your programs in your hospital. And if you don't have great information there, you're in trouble. A referring physician web portal, not all of us have it, but when you can have it, it's great. Even if it's just a microsite for referring physicians, I'm in favor of it. The use of video. How many of you use video to introduce your physicians to referring physicians? It's huge. Doctors don't have time to meet doctors anymore, right? They used to meet at the country club. They used to meet at cocktail parties. They don't want to do that anymore. And I hate to tell you, but our whole business here in this room is built on a model of interruption. Am I right? That's not a formula for success, at least not anymore. By going digital, it's not interruption anymore. You're inviting them to come access these resources whenever it works for them, because good marketing, and you all are marketing communication people, whether you want to admit it or not, good marketing is about communicating to that audience on their terms, not your terms. We have done physician relations on our terms. We're going to come visit you. We're going to drag a physician along. We're going to bring bagels, whatever it is. But put your docs on video. It's so easy. This is one of my favorite things to do, and if we have time today, I'll play some of the videos we're creating. Experiment with social media, and then I still like the old newsletter. I like a basic newsletter because not everybody wants to read stuff digitally. You can create a newsletter, do it electronically, do it in print form, disseminate it in any of thousands of different ways. So I loved it when I went to MD Anderson's site and saw the little Twitter bird, which now is antiquated. They have a new bird now. But I was very excited about that. They were using Twitter to talk to physicians. I didn't know anybody else at the time who was doing this. They also had something called a paper.ly account. Do any of you know paper.ly? Paper.ly is a service that takes, you tell it what kind of information you want it to sort, but it sorts through your Twitter feed and aggregates tweets for a day, and then sends out a daily newspaper to all your Twitter followers. And what MD Anderson did was it told Paper.ly, and this is free, by the way, it told Paper.ly, aggregate all the tweets from our faculty. They have about 70 faculty members who tweet. And you can keep up with what their faculty are doing. Now, do you think referring docs might like that? Yeah. They have something like 3,000 followers on Twitter, and those are physician followers. It's huge. I have a Dan Dunlop daily. I love it. And it just goes automatically. Once you've got it set up, you don't have to do anything. It just perpetuates itself. Then they had a Facebook page, which I couldn't believe, because we all think of Facebook as being kind of a social thing, not a business thing. But they have social, and they still have this Facebook page with resources for docs about oncology. Huge. And I don't know how many followers. Does it say how many likes? 4,200 likes. That's pretty good. I mean, to me, it dispelled some of the myths about how you communicate with referring physicians. So what did we do for Cooper? Well, we didn't try to do everything all at once, but we created a microsite for referring physicians only. This is not a consumer site. It's just for referring physicians. And we created the content. We would go in. They had several centers of excellence that they wanted to push, and we decided we would feature 2 centers of excellence each month. We would go in and interview the doctors on camera with a video crew. Okay, so we're doing that. That gives us video. We can use the video where? On this new microsite. We can use it on the department's website. We can use it on YouTube. We can use it on their physician blog that they have. I mean, we can use it on Facebook. Think of it, the ways you can leverage video. Then we would take the video and transcribe it and write articles based on that information that we can use as this written content, both on the department website, on the microsite that we created, and so on. So the microsite was the hub of this, and you can see we have news updates, we have clinical trials information, medical education, physician profiles, and information on new physicians coming into the system. So here was a hub of information you could gather about Cooper. Then we had the old-fashioned newsletter. It was a 12 to 16-page newsletter that would go out about every 2 or 3 months that talked about those same things, clinical trials, new procedures, new faculty members, all of those kinds of things. We would mail that out to about, I think we had 1,800 different practices on the list. And we mailed more than one copy to each practice because obviously you want different people to be able to access it. Physician, the administrative staff, physician extenders, whoever it might be. And we had this available as a PDF for download from the microsite, and we could email it out as a PDF if we chose. And some of the content we would cover, everything you would expect, updates on the medical school they were building, CMEs, all that kind of information you normally communicate, but we're doing it all primarily digitally. And then we have Inside Cooper blog, where we, again, pull in the Twitter feed. We set up a Twitter feed just for physicians. Again, borrowing from the MD Anderson strategy. And here was the Twitter feed when we first launched it. And it gave us, the great thing about this program is it gave us not just good content for referring physicians, but it gave us, they had a pretty weak website in terms of the content when you go to different departments. So all of a sudden we were generating all this really great content that would bolster the department websites, or at least their sections of the website. So all of a sudden we have these different videos, and we have photography, and we have written copy that we didn't have before. So it made for a much richer program. So suddenly we have a program that has physician videos, we're doing PR, we have improved web content. We even created radio spots from the audio recording from when we videotaped the doctors. So we created radio spots and we run them on stations we knew other physicians listened to. We had the South Jersey Medical Report website that we created. We have physician videos and podcasts. We have social media now. We also had a LinkedIn group in addition to the Twitter feed. So suddenly, and we still got all the physician videos happening. So suddenly we have this integrated program. We haven't gotten rid of all the things we always did. Those are still there in the background. But we've added this whole new layer of digital communication. And I guess the question is, did it work? And here was the result after the first year. With cancer care, we were getting 46% referrals from the PCPs that were in this study, 77% at the end of year 1. And you can see how the numbers improve. But then the reason I know this data is right is because we went down in orthopedics. And I can tell you exactly why. One of the Philadelphia hospitals hired away our orthopedics team. Gone. Overnight. And it happens, it happens all the time. And so we were expecting a drop, and we did experience a drop. So that told us, okay, we've got accurate numbers here. This really did make dramatic impact within 1 year. Just phenomenal. Tufts Medical Center in Boston brought us in to help with their internal physicians, basically their affiliated physicians, these 1,700 physicians I mentioned earlier. Tufts is a children's hospital. I don't know, are any of you from the Boston market? Well, they have a floating hospital for children in Boston. It's a weird name for a hospital, floating hospital for children. It started as a boat on the Boston Harbor, ages ago. But now it's landlocked, it's a building, it's a freestanding children's hospital, and it's a world-class children's hospital. But they compete with what is arguably the best children's hospital in the country, Boston Children's. They're always 1 or 2 in U.S. News and World Report rankings. They go between Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is usually right there with them. So it's hard when you're bringing your child in to see a pediatrician in the Boston Metro. And the referring physician, even though he's affiliated with Floating Hospital for Children, he has to sit there and think, am I really going to make that recommendation? Because they're going to wonder, why aren't you sending me to the best? And the doctor needs to be able to answer that question, right? And I'll tell you, one of the things we do in that case is we prepare talking points for physicians to give them the information they need to be able to answer those questions. We can anticipate what the questions are going to be. It's not rocket science. So we will prepare talking points and deliver those to the physicians. We have them downloadable actually from a microsite. So with Tufts, we looked at the whole system because these are friendly docs. These are docs who want to be able to refer to us, but they're scared. You know, this is another hassle in their day, and they don't need another hassle. So we looked at the process, and we created this program built around a microsite, again, for doctors, not for patients, where the doctor can go and access all the information they need. So the liaisons are going into the physician's practice selling the digital platform. Like, here's an answer. The other thing we did with this program was we wanted to take the doctor out of that scary position of making that referral and having that moment where that's scary. So what we did was we created collateral that would go in the waiting area and in the exam room. So when the patient or the family member comes in, they're sitting there, there's all this signage about, we proudly refer to Tufts Medical Center, or we proudly refer to Floating Hospital for Children. We created that expectation, and we had posters showing that these are quality leaders in this area, and documenting why these are great resources for your family. So when they go to the microsite, they can download they can download the quality brochure that shows that Tufts is the quality leader in Boston. There is no hospital better in terms of quality. Did you know this is the fact sheet? There are ways to talk to your patients. And you can see running down this side, there are all the different things you can download. With Boston, when you're in the suburbs outside of Boston, one of the biggest fears of patients who are referred into any of the Boston hospitals is driving. Like, I don't want to have to drive into Boston. That's intimidating. So we created driving instructions. It's a simple thing, you know? But it's important, and I'll tell you another thing. When I went out, before we did this campaign, I went out and I visited, I rode with Aaron DeBacco, who's now a new board member here. We went door to door visiting physician practice after physician practice. We made sure they could find the phone number. So here are some of the elements of the program. These are posters we put up in the waiting room and in the exam room. We had a patient brochure that would be obviously displayed. We had Post-its, we had notepads, we had these window clings that were really in your face. And one of the things I love, and I stole this idea from a pediatrician who's a friend of mine, it's these, what are they called, dry erase boards? So dry erase boards in the exam rooms, because you know you have that time between when they escort you back and you're sitting in the exam room and then you're waiting to see the physician. So you can put whatever messaging you want on there. And we put QR codes where you can click and go to the Tufts website and learn more about the great programs going on at Tufts Medical Center. And we can write whatever it is. You know, it's flu season. Remember to get your flu shots. Whatever it is. I'll tell you, the pediatricians I know who use these say 9 out of 10 times they walk into the exam room and the parent is on their phone looking up whatever website they've referred them to. It's a phenomenal tool. And you can see for their children's hospital, we did the same exact program, just in the brand, look, and feel of the children's hospital. So when you walked into the practice, before the physician ever made the referral and said, I'm sending you to Floating Hospital for Children, you knew that this doctor had a relationship with Floating Hospital for Children, respected Floating Hospital for Children, and it took a lot of that fear out of that referral decision. And you can see it's not all digital. We use the digital platform for the doctors to get the information they want, to be able to download all these fact sheets and information. But we have all this old school stuff. There's nothing novel about this, but it's the way it's all integrated that really made the difference. Okay, look at this. Just take it in for a second. It's like when the lady earlier was saying, listen, just listen. What does he tell you? This is from a real website. This is one of your hospitals, maybe. Do you all ever see on the Find a Physician sites where they actually have just an outline of a head? Don't let that happen. That is a sin. Please. But this is real. And he's an OBGYN the guilty parties. This is no way to market your physicians to consumers or to referring physicians, because your referring physicians are more likely to meet your docs online than they are in person. So when you present them properly, do them justice, give them 45 seconds of video, give them a minute of video, at least give them a nice color photograph. And if they don't show up, I always get this question, people say, oh, well, what if I can't get the doctors there to take their photo? Then don't put them on the physician file. Leave them off until you get a photo. Make that a condition of it. I would, for sure. All you have to do, and you know, no Stark Law violations or anything like that, I guarantee you, if you have issues, call me, I'll help you through it. So for Signature Healthcare, who wanted to communicate with referring physicians better and communicate with consumers, we created a video-driven campaign all about their docs. And you can go to mysignaturephysician.com and check out the website. Down here at the bottom is a scroll bar with a bunch of their different docs, and we're filming about 40 of them at a time every few months, because it's a lot to film lots of doctors. You know, at MD Anderson, they've got 1,700 physicians. How do you do that? You do it in bite-sized pieces. You can't go in and film 1,700 physicians. But I love this campaign. We really portray the physicians, and this is relevant whether you're communicating with referring physicians or consumers. You want them to look human. I mean, come on, they're real people. If you ever spend time sitting there talking with the doctor, they're real people. There's something interesting about them. We're all interesting in our own way. And look, this is Jean-Pierre Jaja. I love him. He's the chief of cardiology at Signature Healthcare. His secret desire is to become a comedian. I mean, and he's the guy doing the radial stent. But we put stuff in there, you know. Jaja, he enjoys fishing, golf, and has a secret desire to be a comedian. So we don't mind humanizing the doctors. And then we do print ads in publications that physicians, the referring physicians read, that humanize them. And by the way, this campaign was never designed to help with recruitment of physicians, but it's been a huge, huge push or help with recruitment. So I want to talk about, this is really my last slide, the digital future of physician relations. So I'm going to just talk through this without clicking on slides. And then you can go drink. I should say we can go drink. So the digital future of physician relations, where's it going? I mean, you see what we're doing right now is we're integrating social media with a lot of the traditional tools that have worked and will continue to work. I think the future is different though. And we're working with MD Anderson right now to create that digital future. How many of you are liaisons? Raise your hand. I think you're going to be using social media to communicate with your physician practices. At MD Anderson, we're going to be doing it in like 3 days. We're doing a pilot program where we're taking 2 of their liaisons just to start with. You know, we're not going to do it with everybody. We're going to tiptoe or kind of stick our toe in the water and see how it goes. But we're going to be using Twitter first to push out. And by the way, I'm not a fan of being a pusher on social media. We're going to use it, though, to push out and share content that's relevant to referring physicians. And if you think about oncology, there's lots of it there. And in an institution like MD Anderson, they have all these digital resources that they're sharing, or that they have there, that it's hard to find. Even just within their physician relations website, it's hard to know. You know, they have this great information on clinical trials right there on that website. They have a directory of all their physicians with background information and publications from their different physicians. So we want to help direct those referring physicians to the wonderful resources of MD Anderson Cancer Center. So we're going to do that by pushing out information through Twitter. So on Monday morning, they can schedule these basic tweets that share information with physicians, schedule those for the whole week. And then their social media activity for the rest of the week, about half an hour a day, is going to be spent monitoring their account, retweeting stuff from MD Anderson faculty that might be popping up, because they do have a lot of tweeters there, responding to physicians and physician staff who comment or who send them questions or direct messages through Twitter, or who retweet their information, thanking it. Daily, they're going to be doing that interactive stuff that makes it real. Because it's kind of disgusting to do social media if all you're doing is pushing and pushing and pushing. It's supposed to be a dialogue and a conversation. And hopefully people are going to be saying, oh, that's not what I wanted, but can you tell me how I can find this? So we're going to be using social media to connect this physician audience with all these resources. And we're going to see how it goes. It's a pilot program, but I really think this is how it's going to go in the future. And I think you're going to start using things like LinkedIn. And I think having a LinkedIn group for physicians to come to learn about your organization is a perfect thing, because they can ask questions, you can have discussions, and when they follow your LinkedIn group, they get a daily digest of the conversation that's happening there. So it's phenomenal. Again, it's pushing information out without you having to do anything. So my belief is, within 2 or 3 years, your role, in order to reach the people you need to reach, cover the amount of territory you need to cover. I mean, think about the Seattle Children's, which was presenting earlier today. I mean, they're covering Alaska and Montana and Washington State. That's a lot of territory to cover. But think of how much ground you can cover with Twitter. How many of you use Twitter? I noticed there was no Twitter hashtag for this conference. I mean, I think that's an indication of where we are professionally right now. And that's not an indictment of all of you. It's an indictment of physician relations right now. I still think we're in the dark ages and we need to move forward. Because I'll tell you, physicians are moving forward and we need to be there with them. We don't want to be chasing them. We want to be ahead of them. So as they turn to these mediums, we're already there. And we are the one that talk about a competitive advantage. If you're offering them access to this information, you're ahead of the game. And digital is one way to do that. And for the people who don't care about digital, those old physicians, who just aren't there and who are never going to be there, nothing lost. You're still going to communicate with them the same way you always have. So that's it. Go drink. Yeah, who wants my drink today? Thank you. Okay, we got a question. Can you?
I'll be quick. So
We like slow questions. Go ahead.
I work for a large academic institution that is so conservative that they are, for a year and a half have been coming up with our social media guidelines. How can you convince them that they're losing traction? I have physicians that have Twitter handles and they're asking them to not tweet or to take their academic, off their bio.
You have to put in the disclaimer that nothing I say is a reflection of my institution.
Right.
My general advice first, big broad advice, is when you're dealing with C-suite people who are conservative and who are scared of social media, don't talk about social media, talk about digital media first. Take the social word out. And then the next thing is share with them case studies. Share with them information. Be analytical. Share with them business objectives. Here's what we hope to do. If you approach it like you're writing a small business plan, I'm not talking about 10 pages. I'm talking about a 2-page kind of abstract. But you go in saying, here's the business objective. Here are the tools. Here's the data on what physicians are doing. And I guarantee you they don't know that there's 350,000 physicians on Doximity, for example. If you take that kind of analytic, make it a business thing, because so many people, when they think social media, they think it's their kids tweeting and sharing stuff on Facebook and doing Snapchat. I drive to school with my daughter and she's like doing all these selfies the whole way to school. But that's really where they think we are, and they think, oh, it's a fad. You aren't going to be able to yell at them. You can't beat them into submission. You've got to be very logical. I think that is the best, the business approach is the way to go. Speak to them on business terms, and I think that will make a difference. Data. Other questions before we go drink? Yes?
So you're talking a lot about pushing tweets out. But that's a little bit like a billboard in the basement unless someone is receiving it. So how do you promote
I'm so glad you asked that question. That's huge. So you're a physician liaison. I'm just saying we all are. Okay, so we're going out to practices. What I think your job is going to become is connecting them to the digital resources of your organization. So when you're there, you're educating them about how they can follow you on Twitter, how they can follow your docs, How many of your physicians are on Twitter? Here's a list of our doctors on Twitter. I mean, it's an education process. And collateral pieces about connecting digitally. And we're going to do this at MD Anderson. It's already in the plan. We're going to have a collateral piece about digital communication and connecting with MD Anderson digitally. We're going to have little cards that we can hand out that have that same information abbreviated. So it's a great question because it's not magically going to happen. And that's why the job of the liaison is so important, among many other things, because you've got to be that connection, and you have to understand social media in order to make that sale, essentially. You have to be able to talk about your doctors who are on Twitter, or your Facebook page that so many physicians are now joining, or whatever that digital thing is that you're talking about. You've got to get it. So I think all of us in this business should be using social media professionally. And I think our institutions need to embrace that. It'll take time. Yes?
What staff is like MD Anderson have to help with their Twitter or Facebook?
It's funny, for their physician relations program, when I discovered what they were doing, they essentially had one guy who was doing it as part of his job. And usually what I found with Cooper, the example I showed earlier, it was very dependent on one guy in their program who was passionate about this and was willing to dedicate some time to it. Again, he had a full-time job in addition to doing this, managing the Twitter feed and the LinkedIn group and those things. But it really is not a full-time job. I mean, I believe the physician specialist at MD Anderson can spend half an hour a day, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night. And I know how your jobs are. I mean, I've gone on. There is time when you can do that. And I think that is what it's going to require. I do not think it's 2-3 hours a day kind of thing, at least not right now.
Who gives them the information?
What we've done is with MD Anderson, I went through, and I'm a paid consultant, and I helped develop the main content tweets. And then I put together a list of trusted sources on Twitter that they can retweet. And 99% of them are MD Anderson sources, whether they're departments within the cancer center or faculty within the cancer center. So, and that's pretty easy. If you follow them, retweeting, takes 2 seconds and you're there. But it's a good point. You have to have a commitment to developing the content. And it took me a few hours to do that. Yes?
Hi, Dan. I'm Amy from Sarasota Memorial in Florida. And we were talking about the physician videos. We had talked about doing that, and I think it was sort of shelved because how do you roll that out fairly? Because there's so many doctors, some are employed, some aren't. People would say, well, why didn't you do that first? How do you roll that out?
You can't do the non-employed physicians because it's a stark violation unless you offer it to all of them. So that's the easy answer for that part of it. I get that question all the time, and what I always tell people is you've got to prioritize. Clinically, where are your priorities? You've got to look at contribution margin, you've got to look at where's capacity. There's nothing worse than marketing services where there's not capacity and somebody's going to have to wait 4 months to see a physician. I mean, all you're doing is alienating people and pissing them off, pardon my language, but it's true. But so you've got to say, I'm sure you have your priorities, which clinical programs you're pushing. And I'd start with those clinical programs and then roll it out over time. And the good thing is initially, people aren't going to be lining up to do this.
Right.
Well, once they see the success they are, it's like trying to get physician bloggers. Until you get 1 or 2 out there blogging and getting some notoriety, the others are all like, ah. And then once they see it working, they're like, why didn't you ask me? And I did. Yes?
Twitter cancer has a personal accounts. It's the system of account.
So James is asking about the Twitter accounts. For the physician liaisons at MD Anderson, we've set up special Twitter accounts. We've developed a naming convention that we can use for every one of them as we roll out the program and hopefully even, extend it beyond its current reach. So we use like the first 2 initials of whoever the individual is, _MD Anderson. So it's branded, it's consistent, everybody has the same kind of Twitter handle, it all looks alike. And some of them will have separate personal Twitter handles, which is fine. But they're not going to use that for business. Anything else? Gosh, I'm thirsty. Come on, let's go. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.